And today's episode, you could consider it a little bit of a Venus wisdom on a Venus day. So this is a Venus day Mercury hour with the ascendant ruled by Mercury in Gemini. And Mercury applying to conjunct Mars in the 8th house in Capricorn and Venus in Capricorn in the 8th house with Saturn right next to the midheaven in Pisces and Jupiter in the 12th. So not usually the best election, but we'll see why do I feel so much like talking about this now. So first, Venus in Capricorn, we're talking about Venus things that stand the test of time. So Venus rules values, connections, relationships as well. Of course, women, sisters, and sisterhood, as well as cars, beauty, standards, pleasures. And so also the type of food that is more sweet or pleasurable. Okay, the pleasure of the senses is very Venus. Capricorn rules structure, it rules mountains, it rules hierarchy, it rules the part in the father archetype that is setting boundaries. It also rules dedication, longevity, but also ending and death. Saturn, Capricorn. Yeah, when you think about the goat, okay, it literally rules the goat. It's the success that you build over time with a slow and steady wins the race. Okay, it really is climbing a mountain. It's not, the Uranus type of success, but Uranus, the encounter of Uranus, which Venus will trine in her journey in Capricorn, can absolutely be opportunity that meets preparedness. Okay, so Venus in Capricorn is about getting prepared. Of course, it's not going to be there, it's not a natal thing. If you have it natally, I can say I have natal. Venus rules also my 3rd house and my 8th house. And on the way home, I ran into 2 young girls that were doing the shopping for the family. Religious girls. They have natural Saturn in the 9th house, and they were carrying a huge clock that they bought. Okay, a very big clock. Okay, very big clock that they bought, and it was framed. It's a circular frame with black, and was wrapped in black and gold. Okay, so that was, I could not help but thinking, Saturn rules time, watches, Venus rules beauty, like decoration, but also girls. And Saturn Venus is a very practical Venus, but it also is the girls that take care of the family, that are mothers to their sisters, and that can be a bit of responsibility at a young age. Okay, and the gigantic clock, it was a huge clock. Okay, of course, 3rd house, it was a bus station, but Saturn itself is in Jupiter sign, and Jupiter is in Venus sign. So we have this Venus in Saturn sign, Saturn in Pisces is Jupiter sign, and Jupiter brings us back to this Venus in Capricorn. So Jupiter is the sign that makes things big. Okay, so this one was a big watch, wrapped in black, which is the color and associated with Saturn. The gold is probably coming from, like, I have Sun in Taurus, so Sun rules gold. But anecdote of how astrology works, and when you think about Venus in Capricorn as transit, those are the type of things we can expect, because the things that Saturn rule, it rules rings, it rules structures, it rules fathers, it rules teachers and gurus as well, okay, not just Jupiter, it's just a more traditional one. It rules, I said mountains, big journeys, okay, like pilgrimages, but it also rules homeless people, refugees, misfortune, death, um, pushing through difficulties. And so the transit of Venus in Capricorn is where Venus has to be practical. If you want something beautiful, one of the things, advertisements that I saw was for a company, a corporation that sells reproduction of paintings. So you can send a painting that you would like them to reproduce, and there are artists that sit on the reproduction, okay? So these are very talented people because they can reproduce any painting that you want. Think about the Mona Lisa. Think about whatever it is. You have the price as well. But this is something very corporative, and this is something very industrial. And I saw this advertisement on social media, okay, with the co-presence of Mercury here, basically turning the artist into a machine of reproduction, and doing something that's very practical, although they have to have the skill, the ability to observe things. What we are missing here a little bit is the place where creativity has complete and total freedom. On the other hand, we can expect our Saturn things to be well designed. So there is a dedication. If you talk about the watch, okay, this might be a time to buy an expensive watch. I don't know. I don't know what to tell. I don't tell you what to do with your money, okay? But this is a time where you buy something that stands the test of time and is beautiful. Okay, so it's going to be elegant, traditional, and there may be something a little unusual about this because Venus is also ruling Uranus. Okay, so Venus, of course, is also relationships, and we look for, does our relationship stand the test of time? It's true for all genders. What is in a relationship that stands the test of time? What values do we need, and so on and so forth. Okay, we're thinking beyond just our local existence. Saturn also rules, the generational kind of lineage. So we are also thinking about lineages as well, and how that affect our relations. Or what is more important to us on the long run, okay? So we can get very practical and far-seeing. Saturn in Pisces, we are also thinking about health. So our health insurances, what do we want in health? What do we want there to be? And how do we tackle the things that we see right now? Saturn is a little bit of a reality check on the healthcare system, okay? Saturn is also ruling stocks, and Venus ruling possessions and money, so investing in art. But also you think about all the investments that people do in pharmaceutics and pharmacology, and some of them are not really, they might be yielding financially, but then what happens when you need to treat your teeth, when you need to grow your hair, and you have hard water, okay? And you want to grow your teeth, but you have, a tartar build up, okay? And you brush your teeth. It's not because you don't brush your teeth, but you understand it doesn't make sense to go every 6 months to clean it up. There's something going on here, whereas you see people that have no access to medicine, but they have access to clearer water sometimes, clearer soil, clearer air, and their teeth looking gorgeous. So you start thinking about those things. as well. Okay. Yes, Venus Capricorn can be the beauty procedure that you do for your hair, for your nails, for your teeth as well, and how much in, let's say, whitening our teeth is actually beneficial to our teeth health, and how much of it is like paying so much money and so much attention to how our teeth look like, instead of actually tending to the lineage, the things that Saturn represents, um, and the habits that build up over time and affect us, okay, like the buildup of toxins from the Industrial Revolution and so on and so forth. So that is just taking the Venus Capricorn sign with Mars in Pisces. If you think about yachts and ships, there's a lot of reality checks to that. Yes, we've seen, millionaires drowning, but refugees being drowned on purpose, and so on and so forth. I think Saturn is about like where it was when we discussed those things. So, because now it's direct. But you can also think about how to structure a ship, how to build things, because now you're not only thinking about the water and leakage, you're also thinking about the toxins in the water. What happens when the ocean gets polluted, which unfortunately happens. And so a vehicle that can sail or sailing or shipping as well, okay, shipping of goods for long distances. Okay, begin to think about those things. Now they cost a little bit more for some, or there are difficulties, or there is a nuclear ship in Suez that's being bombed by the Houthis. Shipping, delivery, the bureaucracy of vehicle of transportation, and in the sea, so sailing, to ship something by a boat takes can take a month, whereas by a plane it's only like 1 day or so. So you think about all these options. Another thing that we are thinking about is Venus also ruling that Jupiter and ruling Ketu. So we have wisdom from the ancients with Ketu. We have wisdom from that which came before us, or where we are coming from. We think about as humanity or as people. But we are also purging the old balance and the modern old balance. Okay, for example, and I gave with the Venus Ketu conjunction, where we lost certain lawyers, and some of them were feminist, okay, the female lawyers. And the thing is that those female lawyers, they wanted for a woman to be able to work, okay? So it was not for granted that the woman has the ability to own a bank account and to work. And that was more up the, on the table. And they were calling to increase the age of pension. Okay, when you retire, they increase the retirement age for women to compare it to men. Now, as a woman is very satisfied with her job, with her position, and perhaps has overcome a lot of other corruption that is happening towards women and so on, then she might be happy. She doesn't want to retire. She doesn't want to lose her income, to lose her conditions. She doesn't know. She will not know what to do with herself either. But when you think about women that are going through basically trafficking in their own job, various grades of trafficking in their own job, would that be like, why not lower the retirement age for men, and so on and so forth? And because they can't sue, they can't approach litigation, they won't have anything to replace that with, and their job is kind of like draining them more than providing well-being, so, or freedom, and so on and so forth. And so those old judges, they died. They died a natural death. It's not like they were murdered or anything like that, but it's kind of like the old trees die. Okay, they were bringing values that stood the test of time for several decades until we began to enter a phase where today, if you're a woman, you're expected to work. Which the good thing, you're expected to do something with yourself other than be at home, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, we are very depressed. Many of us were very depressed when we are at home. The reason women started working, other than the two world wars, but they didn't have a choice, was also to become financially independent of the husband or the men in their lives, and so on and so forth. That being said, there are new things arising. If you think like after the Me Too, and then if you have survived sexual trauma, then it's more difficult for you to work also as a man. And for some people, they overwork, but they're not so productive, which is, by the way, one of the top problems of the economy of Israel. Everybody works like crazy, but we're not productive because everybody's traumatized, and you just when it's a coping mechanism, you become less effective because it carries you through, but you become less effective. Whereas where you have the Saturn dedication, where you rest enough and work enough, then you begin to be effective. So the workaholics, okay, and so a lot of women are actually workaholics. If you think about Pisces as addiction, the alcohol, then Saturn Pisces can be workaholic, and with women, workaholic women. So values are changing, and the way we've been balancing things is also changing. Okay, and not only with women, we're talking about also the healthcare system. But now with Venus, it's more like a balance, financial balance. Also, when we talk about listening, caring, and so on and so forth. But that is something I will want to discuss in kind of like another constellation. So, Venus is the ruler of Uranus. Here we talked about the Jupiter, and we have a little bit of a loop. Everything brings us back to everything. So we have a little bit of a kind of like a Mobius loop, okay, where it's it is folding, but there is an infinite loop there between Saturn, Venus, and Jupiter. So now when you think about Uranus, and Uranus is turning direct on the 27th. So if you want kind of like the skies when Uranus is going direct. And I brought them together because we want to think about this as a nervous system, okay? We have Uranus going direct, but we want us to begin to think about things in context, to begin to bring them together and see how they work, and also experience a little bit of what it means. And so January 27, so we can begin to work with something on a nervous system level. It's going to be very important when Pluto is already in Aquarius, but we are going to be required to think not systematically as we were thinking in Pluto Capricorn, okay, where you had to have an organization-oriented mindset, okay? In Hebrew, we called it something like orientatia irgunit, okay? So organizational orientation or something like that. It was something that was demanded from people, you know. Having a Uranus in the 10th house, I was like, oh my God, what the F do they want? And the only time I had this was when I was doing Me Too, because I was rebelling and I had to look at the system. And so, but that was the only time I had organizational blah, blah, blah. I don't have it, okay? So, the thing is that with Aquarius, we are already thinking of different type of models that are non-linear. It's very interesting, because this is the interesting, it's the fuzzy science, it's the science of looking into, with Saturn in Pisces, fluid dynamics, the bifurcation of things, which basically means splitting. So you can correct me in the comments, but it's just like a nice word for splitting. And the beauty of equations, and painting an equation, okay, calligraphy, especially with the co-presence of Mercury here. So those are all things that are very compatible with astrology. Okay, I can tell you, yes, Venus in Capricorn is this. You will learn, you will see these things, you know to differentiate, but we also know to bring something together. And Uranus, it has a little bit of a silly walk, and what it brings us is basically rethinking values, revolution of values. But how does a revolution or an evolution or a revolt happen? Is basically when we reconsider what is, and we have hope for something better. We need to see the possibility that things can be better. So Uranus gives us a shocking change. And so it shows us that things can dramatically change. Now, when we understand that things can dramatically change, we look at understanding revolutions. Okay, there are various ways to look at revolutions. It's a whole field of study, both political revolutions and scientific revolutions, and a very relevant field of study. And so I don't remember the thinker, just I learned about it in the academia. So the concept that people need to have hope for something better, need to see the possibility of something better to be, okay? And when Uranus brings a shocking change, you see that things do become chaotic, and within this chaos, you see this possibility. There's already my addition, my astrological addition, to how do we get into those change situations. And there are various ways to go through change. Pluto is transformation, Neptune is through surrendering, Saturn is gradual, things that are building over time. So there is no one. When we talk about social revolution, usually we conceive of it as something that suddenly happened. It doesn't. Also, Uranus is an outer planet. And you can bring in, if you know in the comments, the theorists that talked about this, that would be very useful. But I also don't want us to limit ourselves to understanding revolution also only in a certain particular. You have to have hope. How will you have hope? Well, there are Uranus transits. They are going through and revivifying areas in your life. Uranus Taurus, or Uranus in any Venus sign, is basically revivifying values. So it's the revolution of our values, okay? As a half Dutch, I had a conversation with actually somebody who's Israeli as well, living in Netherlands. And they said, oh my God, I'm here, and all this, people hate me because of me being Jew suddenly, and it's scary. And well, for me, I just want my northern Tel Aviv in Netherlands, kind of like, freedom, doing whatever I want to do. That's why they moved to Netherlands. So decades ago, of course. And so they're like, now I find myself connected with a party that talks about, like stuff that I would never vote for as a Northern Tel Aviv, kind of like person that's looking for like left, liberal left or something like this. And the first thing I thought was, well, the last person that talked to me about the values of the family ended up killing 2 generations of men worldwide, and women. and not really allowing for a family to exist. When you think about it, okay, damaging fertility, damaging as a third generation, but also it's not just because I'm third generation. Even if I was German, even if I was Dutch, alone, like not having ancestries in Israel, on being born here, even then, a world war damages the people. It's not like there are people sitting there and nothing really happens, okay? Unless they are very, very lucky in a way. But that is affecting all of us. And so when we think about the times where Uranus was in Taurus, we really had kind of thinking about values in various contexts. So the value of a family, there's nothing wrong about the family. Now, Taurus, the traditional family. Okay, the traditional family, okay, fine, the traditional family. And that was kidnapping children from Sweden that were not living like this at all, and Poland, and showing them as Irish. Okay, the traditional family. But when you think about poking at your ancestry, if you have nobody in Germany had, and you really want to understand this, because you think about, oh my God, what happened to the Jews? What happened to the disabled, to the LGBTQ, to the Eastern maybe? But think about it. They're kidnapping children of other bloodlines to show that these children are Irish, okay? And they're looking at your ancestries. Now, even if you are German, there was war and rape and conquering for 300 years on the land of Germany before these two wars. And so nobody's going to be completely German. Okay, everybody's being destroyed. It's a democide. It's not even a genocide, it's a democide. Okay? So now the value of the family, the value of having a family life, having a simple life, now is getting a different context, because now people are poking at your life tree and, looking for reasons to send you to death and concentration camps, or to the gas chambers and so on. And that could happen to any German. Okay, there's no perfect German. Okay, well, especially when what they show you as a model, it's a child that's kidnapped from Sweden, from Poland. Okay, it's not even German. So of course you cannot beat that. So you understand what happens here was not just about Mein Kampf, but also an actual democide of the entire humanity with all kinds of weird excuses. So, but it meant to create division. So the Jews would say, oh, the Nazis, and they cannot hear German, and they cannot this, and later they had some of them to go to Germany because there they could get food. But it's creating division, and you think, oh, they are pests. They are. Somebody threw a word to the air, and it's getting, and it has a telos. So they're thinking, oh, they are pests, they are parasites, they are this, they are that. And you grow into this indoctrination as education. So Uranus has the tendency to to poke at every single value that we have and look at it from various contexts. Now with Venus in Saturn sign, we can use it to see what are the values that stand the test of time, okay? Like I said, in the past, women wanted to go out and be able to work and to have their own money and to be independent, not to be a property of the man, okay? It's also good for men because they were less poisoned when she's at work. So it's true. This is how men died from domestic violence. They were violent, so they were poisoned. Now, some of them were violent, but some of them, maybe the woman just wanted their inheritance or something like that. Salamat. Okay, so it was both a tool for a woman to get her freedom from abuse, and it was a murder. Okay, so we have to provide for the conditions for there to not be abuse. So that's good for both sexes and genders and all genders. But right now, when you think about all the corporational violence that's happening and the great resignation and so on, there are a lot of people saying, hey, I prefer to be with my children, with my partner, invest in a relationship. And we also have men that say, I want to be a housewife. And the wife supports them. Okay? So there are all kinds of, like, we can pick and choose a little bit more. And also people are expected to have 2 incomes for a household. Yes? So things are completely different. So what is feminism now? What do women want now? Okay, oh, maybe not to be sexually harassed at work. Okay, or at all. So now we're talking about willing consent. And then we understand that, we get that sexuality, we also get that all the taboos of society are coming up, and the oil and the trust and the children and the trafficking and the terror and the division and all the psychological, everything that's, so women begin to understand this too. Because if they were not supposed, now women see it from their perspective, men see it from their perspective. There are that or more, 1,000 other genders in between, seeing it from our perspective. So Uranus is taking something and bringing it into various contexts. Okay. So when the thing about the revolution with Uranus, you're beginning to revolt, you have no idea how it will end, you're going on a journey to be transformed as well as to transform. It's not just about changing the world, you are changing and the world is changing. So Venus as the ruler of this Uranus going direct is now in the sign of Saturn of Capricorn. So we are going to be expecting a little more of revolution when it comes to big organization. Okay. For example, a person say, okay, I'm bringing the revolution in. Now I'm going to do something like this. Instead of speaking out authentically, I'm going to play by their rules, because this is Venus Capricorn. I'm going to play by their rules. I'm just going to write my CV, apply to a corporation, or go to the doctors that I need to have their approval to get the driving license. Okay, I'm going to take care of the things that I need to take care of. And then I'm going to meet people at work. And then I'm going to talk about things. And then I'm going, now with Mars in Capricorn, you can do this. And so when you think about it, it was also during COVID where we had the masks and a lot of people were fired from their workplaces. Some people tried to get like better jobs and stuff like that. But some people were like, hey, F it. I do want to be living. And when there were no resources, not everybody had resources. So people had to do certain things. So if you had to wear a mask to buy something at the grocery or this or that, and you saw that it's about control and not about actual health, then you wear a mask. And if you wear a mask, then you would do a stunt, and you would steal something, and you would interrupt something, okay? You would poke at the system. This is what I expect there to be with Venus in Capricorn and Uranus in Taurus. It's kind of like you are the Goodell point at the system. You're the organ that doesn't match. And you get consciously into the set to see what happens when you poke at the system. Okay? Not going to be available for everybody, but some people will begin to poke at the system at this time more so than at other times. It's a transit, okay? Venus is not going to be here forever. She's going to be moving to Aquarius, where it's going to be more about science and looking at gynecology and looking at the fertility science, and what is scientific, what is not scientific, and so on and so forth. Looking at fertility sciences for genders that are gender non-conforming, and like the sex doesn't always match the gender, or gender affirming procedures and fertility and stuff like that. So also at our vocal cords, so sex chakra, throat chakra. Okay, what happens when we are interfering in the system to be affirming, because affirming is validation. So we are expected to have good results, and then we still might have adjustments to do. But when we are not affirming, not validating, then we're going to have the opposite results. So there's going to be a lot of revolution around this. We are thinking about topics of corporation, health insurance, health, the stocks of health that we do, the bureaucracy of shipping things, but also traveling far distances, for both leisure and business with Jupiter in Taurus, okay? So like the bureaucracy, you just want to travel. Why so many things to consider? And so on. So yeah, this is what happens when Uranus is in Venus sign. Okay. Now, of course, other than values, we're talking about a women's sisterhood. We have seen how the concept woman has been tremendously transformed in the public discourse as well. And we have seen also when it comes to appearances, okay, whether it was the nude trend and then the antithetical, okay, all these sorts of women that says, I don't like makeup, I this, I that, while she putting on her makeup and laughing at it, or showing how many layers of makeup there is in nude makeup. The technological filters, okay, the filters. When Venus was in Libra, I was doing technological filters for like my face, and I was just messing with that. Pictures that are made with AI, if it's like you see in the caption, and I'm exploring a theme about nature and robots, as you can see. And so, and also creative rights. Yes, we saw stuff like the convoy since 2018, the digital coins, and we're thinking about rethinking the digital coins. Okay, it's as the miners in digital coins are corporations. Okay, so the vision is Aquarian, but the structure is Capricornian. So do we have an actually decentralized system? Okay, if I listen to people like Lada, then they're optimistic about it. With Pluto reaches Aquarius, which is now at, a lot of new forms of alternative currencies will form. Where, in my edition, whether black or white, okay? Because it can be hidden money and hidden communities as well, like secret societies and so on. But it can also be the rise of secret societies. You need to think about the roles of the Rosicrucians and their continuers, the Freemasons, in the foundations of many places. You know, if you go to Israel, you'll see the roundabouts with their statues a lot, and United States, I don't need to even, very likely France as well. And so the Masons themselves became more inclusive. If you talk about LGBTQ, if you talk about women, it's nowhere anywhere near what it should be. They still think of women's stuff that every woman would laugh at, I hope. But it's affecting our intimate lives as well. Okay. And you want to have sexuality, and it's contributing to something that they're not to blame for, okay? But they didn't do anything to change, which is that the whole Madonna horse symptoms and stuff like that that cause erectile dysfunction, for when you actually have a partner that you want to have more than like stand with, and when you want to have a stand, then for you maybe it will stand, but for the woman not, because she doesn't feel what she needs to feel from you. um, and so and also for women, okay, it's kind of like the things that are still affecting our sexualities and our intimate lives and all of these taboo stuff. Um, so yes, Uranus is going to make sure that we see a value, an appearance, or even a way of a technology to do with food or to do with currency or an asset, with various perspectives before we make a decision. And that's very compatible actually with what Venus is doing in Capricorn. Okay, before we legalize a relationship, we need to see if it stands the test of time. One of the ways is to see this relationship in different contexts. Okay, so there's the personal context, there's the appearance context, there's the intimacy and touch context, there is the agreeing on values. I know Lada just released Vedic teachings about relationships. Haven't really got to watch it. So it's great timing for that with Venus in Capricorn. It's a great timing because people are going to ask themselves, it's a relationship, do we stand the test of time? Would we want to pursue the same type of investments together? How do we run our business life? How do we run our finances? She mentioned also education, okay, which is very important. It's those practical questions. Uranus adds a flavor of seeing things in various contexts. Okay, so let's say, I don't know, your Aquarius rising, then Taurus is your fourth house. You might be thinking about, do I want to live in the same house as my partner? Do we want to have one house? Do we want to have more than one house that we live in, not rent as investment? Perhaps this investment is giving space to our relationship. And if God forbid we would divorce anyway, that would be the case. Whereas in some cases you see couples that are divorced living in one household because of the housing crisis. So it's definitely transforming the way we see things. We know if you talk about Uranus as divorce, let's say if you're a Scorpio and Uranus is your seventh house. I knew when I lived in the city, kind of like a developing neighborhood or whatever you want to call it, that some of the neighbors were living together, but they were written as divorced because somebody needed to get an extra money from the government. Otherwise, they could not support their child. Okay, so you could say, oh, they're fooling the government. Well, would you rather them starving their child and the child ending up in human trafficking by the welfare, kidnapping it? Probably not. So they were written as divorced, but then they're basically sacrificing for the child because when one of them dies, then they really are reliant on the will. Okay, more so. So it's a huge sacrifice of the couple in favor of the children to write themselves as divorced. So that was one way to get what, as an individual from a corporation in a structure that sees you as one household. Okay, and when you think about domestic violence and so on and so forth. But there are so many aspects to these things. Uranus, Taurus is making sure we go through them. Values, assets, art, beauty, appearance. Okay, what is the role of appearance in picking a partner, lifelong partner? Okay, because some things will not stay the same. right? Or some people can decide, oh, we put a budget in. I heard a woman that was putting a budget in for her beauty, for her skin to look beautiful. And she was budgeting that. She's saying, hey, I invest a lot in my appearance, and I want the other person to let's be similarly inclined. So people can be a bit more authentic also about these issues. Okay, do we want to have surgeries? Do we not want to have surgeries? Is another question, because Saturn here is in a medical place as well. We also think about oppositions as to health. Okay, I don't see it so much as like a consultation and so on and so forth with like a relationship, maybe relationship astrologer for some, but it's not so much the classical like the Plutonian, what it would give you the psychologist and the rise of, oh, will we go to therapy together, to couples therapy, when you know that 90% of psychologists don't even know how to count in for domestic abuse in their intake. So so that is something that we are slowly saying goodbye to. But with this transit, perhaps do we have a reading with an astrologer about relationship, about finances, for those who do financial astrology, or about surgery. Should I make a surgery like this for my looks, for my this, for my that, changing of an appearance, or if you have a business to do with fashion, style, stuff like that, or cars, rethinking cars, rethinking. If you think about so many people that innovated in energy, okay, innovated in the field of having free energy for people, were assassinated or suddenly died, which means they were assassinated. And you think about solar energy, that we do have it. So how come we do have solar energy, whereas we don't have like, the Tesla's energy, or other forms of energy? Hopefully I will dedicate more than one episode to that in the future, because we need to know this, as the world is killing the entire planet. And it's not a democide in the sense that the population would decrease. No, on every baby that is being killed, more are being born, okay? People are giving birth to it. It's like it makes people want to give birth. And people fall in love during crisis. So it's not that. But so many people are being killed at this time over stuff to do with oil and gas, essentially. Okay? Because when you think about real estate, you think about natural resources. If you live in the imagination that you will have a natural resource in your yard and you will get the rights and the this and the that, we are not living in this day and age. If they tomorrow find gas in Jerusalem, well, salamat religion. This is how we're gonna get atheism, by the way. What's that mood, though? Yes, this Uranus will be with the Mercury-Mars conjunction applying to it when it goes direct. So you can expect like a flare of jovial curiosity and acting on that curiosity, but also durability when it comes to like say what I'm saying or stuff like that. Let's go. What's happening in the sky? Oh, the sun is squaring Jupiter. Yeah. Mars is applying to trine Uranus retrograde. The nodes. Oh, Mars squaring the nodes. Yes. Now I can see that happening, coming to, yeah. So Absolutely. So this is what I think, and I don't have an answer. Why do we have solar energy, but we don't have all those forms of free energy that exist out there, and the people who invented them don't exist? And so there really is no point of killing so many people and driving the world crazy with deportation and refugees and here and there over, it's not over a piece of land, it's over the natural resources of the land, when we can have other forms of energy free to the people, okay? So this whole concept of governing is, on the one hand, outdated. On the other hand, we shall not forget that Pluto in Aquarius, first of all, it took 300 years for France to be a democracy. Since the French Revolution. So it took another cycle of Pluto. Secondly, it was the rebellion of people who had lands. If you didn't have land, then you would have to go, in the Hitler era, go make World War. Because this is how people are recruited, okay? Hitler was recruited, he was homeless, he wouldn't tell you that, but if anybody who has been in between houses, they know that those are situations where they try to recruit people to all kinds of things. And when they don't manage to, they try to assassinate basically the person, especially if you speak about violence. So telling you the shelter is 40 minutes walk when it's 40 minutes drive, okay? And so on and so forth. So that is also important to know. Okay, we don't want to have like a huge ideation. Oh, now the world is going to be free and everything. This is going to be the war that will end all wars. First of all, Neptune hasn't even arrived to that sort of ideation, like it's not even in Aries, and I don't want to know what happens when Neptune arrives at Aries, because we're going to be in ideation of autonomy and sovereignty. Well, we actually have to surrender our autonomy and sovereignty. It kind of reminds me of the Hobbesian notion of freedom. It's kind of like a Hobbes times, Leviathan Hobbes, for those of you who, and I don't remember when he wrote or what was his chart. So yes, we are talking about those type of histories, and we really need to get what's going on there with the energy thing, okay? Because you've been evacuated because you couldn't pay your electricity bill, or a person freezing to death because they cannot pay their electricity. Well, there is technique to do free energy for people. It's like, this is so fucked up beyond fucked upness. So I don't know, other than people learning about it themselves and so on. But yeah, we would need to learn to be craftspeople too. So while Chiron is in Aries, it's kind of like a wound in our ability to do stuff. So another little bonus here is the Mercury-Mars conjunction. And Mercury-Mars conjunction, we already see it in action in Capricorn. It's already giving. It's giving satire. It's giving a rude, the rude kind of joke that is standing the test of time. And so since tomorrow we already have the Uranus going direct, and the Mercury-Mars is going to be applying to trine it while conjuncting. So if you think I am satirical now, wait until tomorrow. It hasn't even perfected yet. So that is, yeah, the things I wrote today about children, and oh my God. So, but this is the Saturn that it's meant to give us a little bit of a reality check of all our, flagship myth that we are having. And it's also a reality check for ourselves. Mercury Mars conjunction is, you want to think about Mars in Gemini, okay? But with the durability of Capricorn. It's the Mars that knows something about something and speaks up, and is cunning and does that in a way that you really can't, you really can't with it. Like, it's a very potent Mars. I can't say like I would talisman this moment. It does apply to square the notes. So, but it is a moment to remember. Okay, it is a moment where we're going to hear people saying things, and that could be revealing things, but it can also be, like kind of like when a child speaks. It's saying the quiet part loud, and there are going to be various variations of that. And this is saying the quiet part loud when Uranus is turning direct in Taurus and squaring the nodes. So you've heard a little bit of a meta in this episode. And it's understanding that this is an exalted Mars. It's an informed Mars. If Mars says something about the medical system here, listen. If Mars says something about if Mercury says something about real estate and stock here, lend an ear. We're talking about transportation, shipping of soldiers and children and goods and foods and weapon. Understand what's going on, not only UNRWA. So it's a lot of saying the quiet part loud, and the applying to trine Uranus direct here adds a flare of rebelliousness, but also vitality. Okay, if you have been in oppression, then this is a time where you can get a little bit of your vitality on. Okay, Uranus is about life energy. So, and you get your vitality on from acting on, hopefully, what you believe is right. And with Mars here, you get more chance to get to what actually is going on. Mercury adds, you ask the questions. And this will proceed to kind of be catching up to one another. Yeah. Mercury 22nd Capricorn this year can be an event, okay? But other than that, it's more or less until February we are getting this still on and still very active. So as we are releasing from that, expect even more truth to come. So people expecting like a repercussion for things that they say or on social media. This is an exalted Mars, okay? If somebody is speaking up right now, that is after a lot of forethought. And even though the instinct is still an instinct, it's still Mars, okay? And it's still applying to trine Uranus. But it comes after a lot of thinking. And with the type of things that are happening in the world right now, you try to use the old, like you try to repress, you try to silence, you try to oppress, stuff like that, not going to work. Okay, and Mars, Saturn is exalted. Okay, it is that's the thing, um, and so this is where Mars is also about severing ties with the unjust. Okay, this is where people have really had it, and again, the all the ways of doing Capricorn. Okay, now with Pluto and Aquarius, Mars is informed already. Okay, you can't use those gaslighting tricks, those like bullying tricks, those scare tactics. Okay, and you understand that even if you kill this person today, you will have this as your baby in your family tomorrow. Okay, so beware. Saturn is thinking about these things. Okay? It's understanding that this is a time where we really need to consider things and as well understand what are the things that stand the test of time. Okay? Because when something doesn't stand the test of time, this is a cardinal sign, and Mercury is ruling a mutable sign. So there is an ability to start something and adapt along the way. Think about climbing a mountain, okay? You are prepared that there will be weather conditions, okay? And so, yes, it's true that the elites or whomever are also prepared that there will be weather condition to their stuff. They have already been thinking this before and so on and so forth. But also when it comes to our understandings, and for those of us to whom it's more accessible, our choices, they are informed now, more so than almost ever before. Okay, because Pluto will return to Capricorn. So the sudden action, the messages, the words that are going to be said, those sudden things, they are already informed. And you understand, with Saturn ruling death, and in Pisces, we are thinking beyond death. Okay? So this is not about, like, really, this is something that a person thinks, I'm going to come back to this world. Maybe, maybe not. There's a chance I'm going to be coming back to this world. Okay? Whatever is in my power to do, that this will be a nice stay for me. And that is also pulling the veil of ignorance, okay? That I want to be fair with people, I want to be inclusive. It's kind of like pulling the veil of ignorance. It's like a thought experiment that a lot of people are having now. And this Mars Mercury, it can even be children, or journalists, or army people, or combatants, or executives, and so on and so forth. So it's an understanding, hey, when I come back here, which is likely to happen, what is in my power now to make sure it's going to be a nice day for me. Okay, this is what you are dealing with. This is what you are dealing with. And so this is why the old tactics, the scare tactics, the psychological tactics, the this, the that, the fears stuff, it's like, you're afraid. Yes, afraid. Yes, okay, but you know, those things are also standing. So, and I'm not talking about the afterlife, the fear of hell, the fear of this, the fear of that. A lot of people have seen that they have had premonition as to what's to be. So, if we can see certain parts of the future and there is point of interferences whenever that's accessible, so we do these points of interfere, so that we can have a good life. We're supposed to have a good life. Okay, so what can we do? Okay, when people in Israel see that Holocaust survivors 75 years ago still suffer poverty, still are hungry for food. Some of them had to leave if they could afford it, the state of the Jews, to have food, even if they were living in a place that they had traumatic memories from, like even Germany. So we have our thoughts. What do we want this place to be? Okay, not only for those who survive, but those who survive will bring children. Some of these children are the ancestors. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with, and this is what we are dealing with, and it's with Saturn in Pisces, we really go far with our scope of view of the world. Okay, so that is not to say that everybody has their own angle through which they look at, but all in all, the Mercury Mars is informed, and if you hear somebody speaking up now, it's not something they hadn't thought very thoroughly about saying or in what way to say it best. And with Uranus, there's going to be a little bit of the unexpected arising on that level, and people take that into account. So that's what you're dealing with. Okay, that's what we all are dealing with. I talk about fertility, okay, with again returning to Venus, fertility and the practices that support fertility that stand the test of time. What is fertility to us? What's important to us around this? A joyful experience of birthing and conception and parenting that is so vital for healthy children and healthy parents. Okay, people get this now. So this is where Saturn Pisces is also a reality check on those things. So yes, I think that's it.